Hello, everyone, and welcome to another thrilling panel for the Tabletop Squad Con 2020 extravaganza. Today we have MolarDuck versus Nick Robertson with The Trial of Nick Robertson. Can you aim grenades in an RPG? Who's going to take the power move and talk first?
I will. I have nothing to say, but I will take the power move and talk first.
All right, good luck all involved.
Great, thanks. Yup.
Splendidly, eloquently started off, Nick.
Great, thank you.
So, I guess I'll start doing some of the setup. You'll notice that I'm also in chat. That is not me. That is my wife. So, everyone, say hello to Molar Wife.
Hi.
I'm sure many of you have wondered why I've gathered you all here today. It's because there's been a great injustice in the Force that we need to correct through public humiliation and judgment for the most part, as is the usual way in Star Wars. So before we get started, I want to thank Nick for having me on. I'm representing the community in general in stating that he is wrong, and he has graciously allowed us to have this discussion together. First of all, I would like to say that I respect Nick very much as a game master, a storyteller, a role model in general, and none of this is personal whatsoever.
It's just business.
None of it is personal. This is not a character assassination of any sort. So basically the premise is, and I'll start with the clip in just a little bit, that Nick firmly believes that it is impossible to aim a grenade in Edge of the Empire. Patently false, which I'm sure we all understand, but we will delve into this a little bit more and separate it out. We basically kind of pull this into three different kinds of, I say, postulates that Nick has, and then I will show him that he's wrong. There are stakes here, though. This is not just because of the fact that Nick continues to deprive Cameron and Lilith, and I guess also Hudson, of blue dice, which they sorely need. But there are stakes. I have made this frag grenade mock-up, and inside of it are actually blue dice. And the winner of this debate will obtain these. And if Nick wins, I will send this to him, and he will destroy these blue dice in front of Cameron.
Yes.
They are supposed to be the blue dice that she uses. So remember that there are stakes here. I will start off with the next slide that starts off with how the debate all started. And this is where I think both you and I need to mute for a second here, Nick, so that we don't crush the audio.
All right, guys, we're going to hug the wall, go to the left side, and then I have these grenades.
You're not planning on using those boom spheres in here, are you, chum?
Dink! Hey, are you holed up somewhere and, secured and...
So we're holed up somewhere. We're not secured. That's not the word I would use.
Okay, but so if, say, hypothetically, I was to throw some grenades into this hallway here and blow up some stormtroopers, you'd be okay? Okay, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Okay, real quick, before you get off the line, I have some grenades too. You want to make a grenade sandwich over here?
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, grenades!
I put the grenade pin in my mouth and pull it out like an action movie.
Which is super interesting because most of the grenades in Star Wars have buttons, but
Yeah.
we'll go with it.
Okay, so I throw this frag grenade at the same time that Ziana throws it.
Okay, I would really like a ranged light attack from both of you, just to see placement-wise how this goes. Yeah, I know. This arc has been asking people to do the skills they're not good at.
What's the difficulty?
Average. You're just chucking grenades down the hallway. It's not... Oh,
Can we say we aim?
No, you can't aim grenades. We had this
Why
conversation
can't you aim
before.
grenades?
What? With what?
Daring very intensely.
You line up that red blinking arc that comes up in video
Yeah.
games.
All right.
I stand by it. What a
All right,
great
guys.
point.
We're gonna hug.
Oh, sorry. So,
I was
just
like, Hudson's talking. What?
Hudson's. I was like, what's going on, Hudson? Sorry. So I have a slide up here that shows what Edge of the Empire states is the actual aim mechanic, just in case we need for reference. You probably can't read it on the stream just because it's really hard to get a good capture. But basically, when you aim a grenade, or sorry, when you aim a combat check, you get a blue die on your next combat check. You sacrifice your maneuver, it gives you advantage. There's also a secondary part where you can do a called shot, where you can suffer 2 black or setback dice to do aiming as well. So we can come back to this slide as, yeah, you bet you didn't know that, Nick.
Interesting.
So, yeah, might make for some interesting arguments later on. But so I believe this brings us to your part of things where you start to talk about why it is you apparently believe
Am
that
correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your very first postulate, I suppose.
So my first thought is, when you're aiming, it is the act of lining up the weapon and taking extra time to use the tools available to you. A grenade does not have a scope or iron sights or a laser sight on it, so you cannot aim it. Well, great. Okay. What is that supposed to do?
This is in your section of things, so this is not a feasible thing. So
Yes, that's my point. That's not
Yes.
feasible.
Right. Yeah. This is the part of the PowerPoint I made that supports you.
Well, thanks. I would like to point out, I think I said in a previous panel, but technically, if you have the jury rig skill, you can add additional hard points to items, including making things go from 0 to 1 hard point. So, so you did, there is the ability to put a scope on a grenade in Edge of the Empire, which I encourage.
Just for my own thoughts, what happens in your head when one does that?
Oh, nothing. It's just a fun thing that you can do. If we got to a point where people were modding their grenades for silly things, I would probably give like an extra damage or something because of extra shrapnel, because I would like to encourage that kind of customization. I don't like that there's now video evidence of me saying that, and I know some of my players are watching. That's concerning. But having a scope strapped to your grenade should not do anything to make it more accurate.
And I will say that given that I have 0 things on record in a podcast format and you have many, many hours, I decided not to use your own words against you because I felt like it wasn't fair.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
I will only use logic and, the rules as written, which can be interpreted by your GM in any way that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything more you wanted to add on to this particular argument?
No,
or do I get to destroy it?
That one's pretty much it. You knock yourself out. Also, I will say, I am not planning on relying on the, well, I'm the GM, so I'm right rule, because that feels like cheating.
That is very fair of you, and I appreciate that. Okay, so here comes my part for which I need to do a change. Objection! All right. So, if one were to think of aiming in Star Wars, I can bet every single person here has the same thought process in mind. If I say, think of an iconic part of Star Wars in which there was aiming, what would that be? Would it perhaps be this one? Now, point being, the entire point of this section, the most iconic aiming part of Star Wars, is that Luke puts his targeting computer away and trusts his feelings. Also, what the hell is going on with these proton torpedoes? Because I do not understand what's going on. They go straight and then all of a sudden, boom, they go down.
You rolled a triumph, clearly.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. I also appreciate chat mentioning blowing up the AT-AT with a grenade as well. I could not find an animated GIF for that, but that one works. But let us say we think of other places where there is aiming done without a weapon, perhaps in this particular Disney film. But so aiming can be done in lots of different ways. You do not need to have something that's actually attached to the weapon to make this happen. Think of darts. Yes, think of curving bolts like in that Angelina Jolie movie, which apparently is a thing, and they are not using the sights for that. But I will get into further details of this, but there are many different ways in which people have aimed without using an assisted optical device.
I much like a castle under siege, I will cede this particular argument to you to defend a better territory.
All right.
I do think you can aim darts though, because you can line up the little fin thingy. So
But I
I
don't
don't
think the
think.
fin thing goes in front of your eye, does it?
I mean, I'm not great at darts, but that's how I've always done it.
Okay. We will table darts just
Yeah.
because neither you nor I are experts and I did not do the research into darts. All right. I think that settles our first postulate that we
Yeah,
had.
we'll let that one go. You can have that point. That's fair.
Okay.
I like the sandwich grenade.
So this one is a little more important. Aiming should have a benefit. So the thought being, if you take a baseball and throw that baseball, that it's going to go where you throw it. If you take that baseball, think about it, spend some time breathing, line up the shot, and then throw it, it's going to go to about the same point. So that if you aim, you're not going to get anything additionally out of it. Oh man, I would absolutely use that in a game though.
I know you would.
Oh man. Although I would need like a heat scope because I think Vicious Mockery is line of sight, so you want to be able to see through obscured stuff to insult people further away. That'd be good. Or you need a megaphone for Vicious Mockery because they have to hear it. We'll table that. We'll talk about that more later.
Yeah.
But I'm very intrigued by that one.
Okay. The other example I had for this was the tactical hammer.
Yeah. It being able to aim it, much like the grenade, doesn't actually do anything. Like you can line it up, but it's not going to necessarily make anything happen there. So the idea being, even if you take the grenade and aim, even if you aim like Mulan and do this first, the difference between taking the time to do that and just throwing it where you're trying to hit is going to be the same. It's still going to hit around the same spot and does not deserve a blue die.
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to break down that last part a little bit later in postulate number 3 that you have for that.
Okay.
In terms of like the benefit of taking time to aim while throwing. And your wife is yelling at you in all caps, so you may want to take a look at that.
Oh, are you? I don't even have the video open because I'm so confident. I'll have to go back.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's see. Let's see. So my thought with this is that we're not just chucking grenades down a hallway. That is not how one uses a grenade. If you needed an example of this, I would say anyone who's played original Halo and has held a plasma grenade. So these are things where even in the game, you did not have a reticle, but the way that you throw it makes a big difference upon how it lands. And that placement is very important. And that placement is where it comes into place, right? And I'll admit the rules for grenades in terms of what they actually do are very strange in Edge of the Empire because it's kind of like you can miss, but then you can also use advantages to make the grenade still explode somewhat, and it can explode and hurt just one person and not the people around it. So yes, I will admit in Edge of the Empire, there is some wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey things going on with grenades themselves. But how would you say that throwing it with a better thought to where the grenade is landing does not make a difference?
So my point would be with this one, I think this is the part where we have our respectful but inherent differences here, is
where
that
you're wrong.
well, okay, maybe it's not respectful. but the throwing the grenade, this clip that you use of Halo, a respected game, you're not aiming it, you're throwing it. Like if you throw it without trying to make it go where you're going, then you're with God, grammar. But if you're throwing it without trying to hit what you're aiming at, then you're just yeeting it. And there is a difference between a yeet and a throw. This is an important part of the
Okay.
argument. So if you were to just chuck your plasma grenade, not paying attention to where it was going to go, you have yeeted the grenade. You have not thrown it. But the very act of lining the grenade up to try to bounce it to hit somebody is part of the throw in the first place. There's no additional button you hit to spend more time to aim. And I would say
So
flipping the analog stick to look up at the correct angle is not aiming. That is a part of the throw action.
So, where mechanically does a yeet and a throw differ to you in Edge of the Empire? Because
Oh.
the dice pool would be the same.
I would say that there are no rules for yeeting in Edge of the Empire. They took it as a given that you would not yeet.
Okay. I'm seeing the chat. Well, one saying that you must define aiming in a more specific way, I suppose.
Oh, I disagree. Well, I tried to, and you told me that didn't count. The whole thing of this is talking about defining aiming, I think.
Okay.
Aiming would be taking, let me try. Aiming
Sure.
would be taking specific time to make your ranged attack of whatever kind more accurate. And so you can't inherently, by my definition, aim throwing, because the act of throwing will be the same amount of accurate whether you take more or less time.
Okay.
That's actually pretty good. I feel pretty proud of that definition.
And you should know, like, you're not.
Oops.
And you should know, like, you're not going to win this. You can hope to slow them
Oh yeah,
down.
I'm providing a distraction.
So this is moving into your third postulate, which is aiming is intrinsic to non-range skills, apparently.
I would like to point out that oh yeah, hey, I did a cool segue. I would like to point out you said you were not going to be using my my own words against me, and they're
That was not against you.
This
This is in your section.
This is
It's
yeah.
supporting
I
you.
keep trying to undermine my own arguments. The aiming is intrinsic to non-range skills. Like I said, a yeet and a throw are two different actions. A yeet being I don't care where this goes, I want it away, and a throw being I want it to go over here. People in the Discord have seen me draw how do you aim a cat. If you spend time to look down the sights of the cat, it is going to go much closer to where it is than if you shoot the cat from the hip, firing meows willy-nilly. Whereas with a grenade, if you, like I said before, if you throw, hey, look, my pictures. Thanks, MolarDuck.
Yeah, you got it.
So there's the cat being aimed. And then if you throw, it's going to go towards that target. Whereas if you take the time to aim, look down your thumb, breathe for a second, factor in, as Lilith said in the chat, wind speed and velocity, and then throw, it's still going to go at that target about the same amount. That
Can
is
you
my thought.
explain these drawings for me? Just
Yes, I absolutely can. So on the left, the cat is being aimed because I drew this on at work on a work whiteboard, and I was like, I am not drawing a blaster at work. But firing from the hip, the first happy smiley face guy. See how the meows are all willy-nilly and not near the target. Aimed cat taking time to breathe, aim down the iron sights of the cat. The meows are straight and headed towards the target. Whereas in the second photo, when you throw, the beep beep ball goes towards the target. And if you take the time to breathe and heft, I even put the word heft in there while aiming, and then throw, the beep beep ball still goes towards the target.
I would also like to point out, like I pointed out when you originally posted these drawings, that if you look at the aimed throw drawing, the ball is actually closer to the target in that picture than you have in the other ones.
It's
So-
a different time spot, and drawing's not made to scale. I did not commit to these diagrams being scientifically accurate.
Either that or unconsciously you understand the fact that you can aim balls. So let's see. I am burning through our points a lot faster than I thought we would go through. So
that's okay.
I can milk this out a little bit longer, but that's true. He did not label it not to scale on his drawing.
Great.
Which everyone who has seen Back to the Future knows is an important admonition to make when you're making any kind of model of any kind. Okay. I had to jump forward there because that was going to be your fourth postulate. Whatever the hell this is, I don't understand it, Nick. So let's see.
And you should know, like, you're not going to win this. You can hope to
Sorry.
slow
Oh
them
yeah,
down.
I'm providing a distraction.
Yeah.
Sure.
This one
We
is
can-
the least defensible, probably.
Well, it's interesting because I sent Nick a reminder of our three postulates we're going to be arguing about, and Nick said, "I like how you have put them in the order of what I feel like is most important to least." And I said, "Nick, I put them in the order of what I thought was most bullshit to least bullshit." So it's going to be an interesting panel, and we
Yeah.
will allow for probably some cross examinations as well.
Yeah, we
I
can
am
do
the voice of the
questions.
people, but. So I do think I have found a video that summarizes what Nick's position on aiming with weapons is. So I will play it now.
It's not essential to look, Wolfie. You just have to be able to aim. Let it go. There we go. It's a little bit better. You kind of want to glance, then turn away. It's not really important. Just make sure no one's walking in the way. You know what I'm saying, Wolf? Look at that grouping. Good grouping. Ah! See that? Mohican. Ah! So. All right, well, I'm here to teach you and all your friends and the next generation how to throw tomahawks without looking. It's important to look so that no one's walking in front of the target, but really, it's all about arrogance and confidence. You don't even need to look. See, that sounded like it hit, and I don't care because I didn't see it. That one sounded like it hit the ground, but it didn't. You know, because I know it's important. That one, too. The Mohican 2000. Check this out. I stuck it.
Objection. If we have extra time, we can just loop the Jason Momoa video over and over again for like half an hour or so.
It's a very good video.
It is a
It
good
really
video.
is.
Yes. And yeah. So I forgot what we were talking about just when I was watching Jason Momoa. Hold on a second. So we're going to take a little side trip here and also talk about aiming then. As part of this, aiming is a part of the actual action, right? Which is what you're saying is that the aiming part of throwing a grenade is baked into the throwing a grenade check. And the chat really needs to let me think for a moment. All I see is Jason Momoa over and over again, which is on me. I brought that in, so I should have accepted that. That would be what had happened.
Now who's unprepared?
No one's prepared for Jason Momoa. Let me tell you. So we will talk about also aiming things that are not ranged weapons as well, because I feel like it falls within the same thing. So Nick purports that you cannot aim a grenade, nor can you aim a melee weapon because you will always strike the same particular spot, right? So are there instances in which we've seen, either in sports and media or in Star Wars, of people attempting to aim melee weapons? Or are there any iconic fights or fighting styles where people are like pointing at what it is that they're going to you know, try and attempt to strike? And I don't know. I mean, oh, you probably can't see that, but there is now a circle around Obi-Wan's offhand that shows where it is that he is pointing his, you know, his strike and everything like that. But all joking aside, I would argue that when you have these like samurai fights, you know, the iconic samurai fights where someone just like, you know, they're holding their sword and the other guy's holding their sword and they don't do anything for like 2 minutes, and like the camera just shows their eyes and the sweat and everything, and then boom, they go, and then there's a strike and then one guy goes down. That whole process was aiming, right? It was planning out the place that you were intending to strike, right?
Maybe. I would say that one, I think that hand gesture is showing the length of the blade and the distance, not necessarily aiming for where your target would be, which is different. But you could still argue it's still aiming. I would say mechanically for melee attacks, unless you were calling a shot with melee, which is a whole different conversation. I know. But the The reason you don't aim is because the damage taken in melee isn't necessarily the one time you swing you hit meat. It is a representation of a multiple exchange, which is why you can't necessarily aim it, because it's whichever one of your attacks gets through in that cinematic exchange, as you could see on our very popular actual play podcast, where it's very rare that someone says, I'm going to roll this melee attack. Okay, I hit him. And then we move on. Like, there's usually a description of multiple actions in there.
But I feel like people have asked to aim their melee weapons before and have been denied. Hence, that's why it's not in your particular tabletop podcast.
I would say that I think there's an inherent difference between aiming and a called shot, and we've never done a called shot, and that if they wanted to do a called shot, they can for black die. I have no problem with that.
So why is it that you can apply one half of the rule set, but not the other half, right? That doesn't make sense to me. Why would one weapon be eligible for the called shot penalty, but not the bonus that comes with aiming?
Arbitrary and capricious judgment.
It's a fair point.
So my thinking being, again, by the definition of aiming, my own definition of aiming, like you're not necessarily going to do that with a sword because of how sword combat is represented. But you could take a negative to say avoid armor, because that exchange can happen with your focus specifically being on towards that person's neck. And you could do that. And then you could skip their armor.
All right. I will then delve one step deeper. Let's talk about precise aim. I believe this is a skill on the bounty hunter tree. I forget exactly which one. The scan's probably a little rough. So it says once per round, you may perform a precise aim maneuver, suffer a number of strain no greater than ranks, blah, blah. Reduce the target's melee and range defense by that number, which means that this is an aimed skill that reduces a melee defense, which means that it must be activated by a melee offense, perhaps?
Yep, it sure would appear that way.
It's on Assassin. Thank you very much.
Of course it is. That's on Cameron's tree. That makes sense. It's also on HK's tree, so that's a little awkward. I don't think I bought that skill. I would say that sure, you can reduce target's melee defense by doing a precise aim, because the fact that it's precise. You can precisely aim a grenade, I suppose, but you can't normal aim a grenade. We're at the small tower in the middle of the castle of argument at this point.
Yes, we've been burning through these walls quite fast. So we'll get to the last part of my argument, but first we can entertain questions from chat, I suppose. I have it up here.
Happy to.
Okay.
Bonus points to anybody who has any help for me. Seems like a harder one to do at this point.
So I've been glancing through, but I haven't been keeping a tally. But if there are specific questions you would like for Nick to have to answer in front of, the force and everyone, feel free to type them in there and I'll read them off before I get to my last bit here. So I am seeing a lot of aiming is used to steady a weapon, which can be on a melee attack as well. I've seen a lot of people saying that they have super good throwing skills.
I feel like, geared for music's point, that the projectile has to exit a barrel for it to count feels very right. Thank you, geared for music.
So you
great.
feel all right. So let's see. Yes. So Cheerio Buffet adds in again. If rules are written is to steady a weapon, why does that not apply to a sword?
Which is a fair point. Except, what is holding the sword still going to benefit somebody for? when you're trying to hit someone with a moving sword. Like whether the sword is shaking a little bit or not isn't going to affect the arc of your swing.
So you admit then that apparently grenade launchers can be aimed, but
Oh,
grenades
absolutely.
cannot.
Yep.
So how is that any different once a grenade leaves the barrel in terms of the difference that happens?
So the difference being the mode of conveyance, MolarDuck. A grenade launcher is a firearm. You can put a scope on a grenade launcher. It can have iron sights. You can set the parabolic arc. It has a consistent projectile speed. Your arm is a moving lever with a varying length and release trajectory and varying projectile speed. And all of that calculation of the physics of creating your own parabola with your physical arm happens with the throw in the first place. Taking more time to think about it isn't going to make you better at it.
Okay. Lilith says there's no barrel on a bow and arrow. Can you not aim that? Nick will say that there are bows that do have sights on them as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
you can aim down the little fletching.
Down the length of the arrow. I'll admit that one, yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. What if you were trying to throw a grenade down a small thermal exhaust port?
Maybe one about 2 meters wide.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
about the size of a womp rat or so.
Maybe, give or take. That one was, hey, maybe that 90-degree turn was the force. There's a thought. He wasn't doing an aim check. He was doing a force check. So we're not talking about the force. We're playing Edge of the Empire, which doesn't have the force in it.
Technically, Luke could not move things with the force at that point. He could only kind of aim with it.
Really? Cite your sources.
Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Tell me one thing he moves in that movie.
Those proton torpedoes, apparently. Or he's channeling Obi-Wan's Force Ghost, who then does it, because Obi-Wan can move stuff.
I refuse to believe that, because George Lucas for sure would have said something about that if that was what he was planning.
Okay, that actually
that kind
is
of man.
He 100% is. There would be so many conversations on StarWars.com talking about that.
Well, he'd be like, well, actually, it was the midichlorians from Obi-Wan that came back, and then they moved the proton torpedoes.
Yeah, solid impression and a very good point. I will cede that one right away.
All right, we have one from Dave that says, same goes with boxing. If you take the time to square your opponent, you have a better chance of getting something to land. Same goes with baseball pitching and football throwing.
Baseball pitching, the windup is used to generate additional power by including your entire body in the throw. It does not necessarily increase accuracy. If you don't believe me and you're not a baseball player, go throw a ball at a circle on your fence and then, or anyone's fence, just make sure they're okay with you throwing balls at it, and then try and do a baseball windup and throw. You'll be able to throw harder, but it's not easy to aim as a pitcher.
Or if you're Nick, draw a target on your wall and then throw a baseball at it with your eyes closed, because apparently that's how Nick throws balls, is what we've discovered.
I like Agent Sid's comment that aiming with a weapon would just fall under your sword fighting skill if you're doing a melee one. One might even say melee ranks, and that there isn't a special aiming involved.
But wouldn't that not also apply to your skill with a firearm or a ranged weapon? Could you not just say, well, that's just baked into how good you are at using firearms?
Well, see, that's the thing, though. So yes, your general how quick can you shoot would be used based on your firearm skill. But if you take the additional time and time you could have spent running around flipping doing cool action rolls, and instead use the skills available to you, use the parts of the weapon that are kind of optional but can help you be more accurate, and take that additional time, you will be more accurate. Whereas with the sword, it's all muscle memory and swinging and stuff. Ooh, I used "and stuff" in my argument. Never a good sign.
Lots of sports in the chat right now. We have Sparklefish. Windup is not indicative of aim. So I would say that when we're talking about aiming, I agree, it's not the windup. It's the time where you're calculating the trajectory of where it is you're going to go. You have a point, Nick.
Oh, I just got really excited that Sparklefish said that fish is a pitcher and windup is not indicative of aim. So I've been trying to talk to a baseball pitcher since this argument started, and softball is just as much a sport, and I'm excited about that. Thank you,
This is true.
Sparklefish.
But no one has ever said the windup was aim before. I believe you brought that up.
Shit. Well, it made me happy anyway.
So yes, does the grenade need to hit for blast to be able to activate? Technically, rules that as written, if you have 3 advantages, if you miss, you can still activate blast.
Mm-hmm.
The rules
Grenades
for
are devastating if you do both, because they
yeah,
do
it's
a crap ton of
very
damage.
weird in terms of how they have chosen to make blast happen, because yeah, it's weird that you're like, I hit someone who's standing in the middle of someone with a grenade, but I only got 1 advantage, so therefore it only hits them, I suppose.
And the fact that it goes off of ranged light means that there's a whole bunch of people you would expect would be at least okay with grenades that are horrible with grenades, like Tink, for instance. Can't throw a grenade to save his life, aim or not. That also happened. I don't know why Barrick and Jackie are asking that, because that definitely happened in the game we played yesterday. So
Yeah, I mean, I had to look that part up myself more recently, just because grenade rules are really not.
yeah, they are strange.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the thing also going is like, is there a difference? And I think the precision of the aim of the grenade is what the thing is that we're talking about here. It's like in D&D, where in the middle of battle you can pinpoint fireball, so it's exactly 15 feet away from your people, but hits just the bad guy. Like that is the part of precision that comes with aiming.
What action do you use in D&D, MolarDuck, that aims your fireball to make it go more where you wanted it to? Would you say that it is inherent in the spell that it goes where you want it to, and that's why people
Yes,
like to play mages?
but that's magic, you see.
I walked into
But
that one.
that is also the thing that GMs for D&D oftentimes complain about, is the fact that in the middle of battle, your mage can just boom, pinpoint off where that fireball spell is supposed to go to, right?
Yeah,
Which oftentimes they feel like there should be some kind of disadvantage roll because you do not have the time to aim it as well as you may, you know?
yeah. Well, and I mean that's a whole nother panel where we just start dunking on D&D's rules, but
That's true. I'm
yeah.
trying to avoid too much of that. We agreed to kind of keep it to edge, because otherwise I'd have to pull out Shadowrun, and then there would be a bunch of charts.
Yeah, I'm not that good at calculus. I don't think I'm ready for that.
Barrack 50 cal brings up a point about football that needs to be addressed.
Oh, the one about taking time to pause in the pocket. So what I would say is Edge of the Empire would be better served to assigning black die for firing on the move than it would to say aiming. So like for instance, a quarterback pauses in the pocket to have steady footing to throw. They're not aiming any more than that. It's that they throw less accurately if they're throwing off their front leg, for instance.
We should make games harder. Okay. My wife has also been saying things in here. I need to at least look at them so that I don't get in trouble later.
Fair, good. I'm happy to support this decision.
Yes. I think she's mainly just yelling at you, but let's see.
That's fair.
So yes, I think Nick's argument hinges on the fact that throwing already includes calculating trajectory, which apparently happens spontaneously per Nick. That is the crux of where we're getting to this, is where he feels like if you're using a gun, there is some kind of thing that separates you between figuring out where something's going to go and where it goes, as opposed to using your own body, in which case it just happens, right? Or it's baked into that thing. That's your third postulate.
I think that throws function the exact same way. If you pour water out of a pitcher, how do you make sure it goes in the glass? How much additional math is your brain doing to calculate that arc? It just happens. Like from your experience of creating that arc by pouring a pitcher of water into a glass, you know where it's going to go. You may do some micro adjustments, but nobody is going to sit there with the pitcher and go, all right, this is going to go right here. It's a muscle memory thing. It's subconscious.
So,
uh-oh.
What if like there was some way of looking into seeing what happens when you actually aim or throw or do something that involves mechanical precision? So I'm going to cite a journal article. I'll have the exact citation on the next one, but essentially what they did is they did fMRI studies where they had someone in an MRI scanner and they were basically tapping different targets in the air. And they had a camera to see, how much time is going across. And what they had was called the ID, or the index of difficulty, where basically as the points were further away, it became harder for the subject to actually touch the different parts. It's a very simple thing, much easier than, throwing a grenade or swinging a sword. But what they found is that when you have a low index of difficulty, you activate different parts of the brain than when you have a high index of difficulty. And again, this is just touching different parts. So if you were using things that were on the low index of difficulty, you were using things more in the middle portions of the brain that kind of deal with reflexes and motor skills that are almost autonomous, like Nick was saying. But when it gets a little bit more difficult, then you activate more of the back of the head, which is the visual spaces, and you actually activate some of the more planning parts of the brain. So one might argue that the human brain is in fact a scope that is attached to every single thing that you try to do.
Is that the
Perhaps the blue die is using that time to activate those other parts of your brain so that you can use things to help have a better precise shot.
It's that could also be a really good postulate for like a business book about self-motivation or something. You could say like use your brain scope.
It's true. Becoming scope.
Becoming scope. Yep.
But I've put their final paragraph in here and I've highlighted. As a final note, it's interesting to note that for this unilateral aiming task, as index of difficulty increased, premotor activation was also seen. So you are in fact having a very different physiologic finding when you are aiming than you are when you are actually just shooting off the hip or going from the cuff.
Well, I'm not going to do the thing where I retreat back into the rules when I said the rules weren't quite right because of real life. So
that's fine. You can go into the rules.
No, I
We have
don't. I
time.
don't. I don't.
We have
want
another
to.
15 some minutes. And that
I
was
think
my
it
last
is
big shot.
that's a good shot. I don't think I could do anything except I don't want to take it from the audience. So I would love to call for a vote on who thinks that that won.
Okay, so
No.
well, I had some closing stuff. So
Okay.
in closing, as Christopher said in the chat when this came up, rules lowering in me cringes, but the gamer in me is happy. Y'all enjoying the game, and damn the rules. So at the end, as long as we're having fun, that's all that really matters. That being said, we should vote because we should have a winner. So I think we said we would vote in chat. So if you want to vote on my side of this argument, please type hashtag I love Space Mom in the chat. If you agree with Nick, please type hashtag Eyes Wide Shut. And this is all fun and this is America. So I will donate whatever percentage of the AIM votes to the Navajo and Hopi families COVID-19 relief fund. So know that every vote against me is a vote against that as well.
That's good. That's it's quite honorable of you. That well, I'm seeing a lot of the same vote coming out of here.
And remember, this isn't for me. This is for Cameron's blue dice when she plays. Possibly later tonight.
Oh no. No, because we're not using Edge of the Empire. They're welcome to aim whatever they want in the game system that we're playing in the live game. Hopefully based on the setting there aren't grenades. That would be a little concerning, but hard to tell. Could happen. Great, thank you, Cameron, saying I'm going to add blue die to my roles in the live game.
Do we get to vote, Nick?
I mean, I voted already.
Oh,
so.
Okay. My wife can vote for me then.
Yeah. No abstentions, says Kaltha. Everyone has to vote. Barrick says, let mom aim swords and grenades. So the thing is, though, like I absolutely will start adding the black die part of that rule too, which I never have before. So pros and cons.
The swords come in by proxy if the grenades come in, Cameron.
Uh-oh. Have y'all heard me describe the dice rolls my players have? They have so much experience. Did they really need additional blue die? Tink rolls 4 yellows and a green for attacks.
I guess the flip side of that is if they roll so much of a dice pool, what difference does giving them a blue die make?
I gotta have something. Aw, no, see, Jackie, though, I can seed to new information. I can be persuaded. And if I change my mind, it's because somebody took the time to educate me and teach me a new thing. And that is okay. Now, that being said, maybe we won't record for a while and maybe I'll forget and I'll still hold by this. Who knows?
So what my wife doesn't realize is tabletop RPGers always need more dice.
This is very true. Actually, we have, by doing the online con instead of Gen Con, we have probably saved so much money on somebody buying dice out on the table floor. That hasn't
Out of
happened.
respect for your game mastering, I won't talk about who that person is or isn't.
No, I'm still on a ban. I am no longer an economic risk to dice. Jackie says having a big dice pool does nothing with blanks in that you can have a failure with a crap ton of advantages. That did happen every single time that my bad guys rolled. I rolled 4 yellow on an easy check and got 7 advantages and no successes. So that is something to be aware of with this system.
That's like when John Michael tried to heal us.
Oh yeah, that's a thing that can happen. I like the idea that that just means that John Michael's character doesn't actually want to heal y'all that bad.
No, Vex is pure and sweet. Do we feel like we have enough?
I feel like we have enough votes. I feel like there's a pretty strong consensus there.
All right. Well, I preemptively donated $100 because I figured that.
That's very good. Good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that my education is also helping others. This is good. I'm going to take that as a warm fuzzy. Yeah, that's nice.
We educate and we help others. So thank you very much for allowing me in your space.
Oh, for sure.
I hope that you've learned something.
Whether
I hope that we've all learned something,
or not.
But specifically you.
No, actually, I voted for MolarDuck Cheerio Buffet. I didn't vote for me. So somebody supported me even in my inaccuracy. So but always welcome back. I'm sure by the next time we do one of these, there'll be something else that I have decided is patently correct and refuse to be educated on. And as the voice of the fans, maybe you'll be back. We'll try it again.
I don't know why they picked the troll as the voice of the fans, but
well, it worked out. I mean, strategically, they picked somebody with a lot of ammunition, so it worked well. But thank you for coming and talking with us. I had a freaking blast. This was a lot of fun.
Chewie and I did as well.
That's good.
Anytime you want to be educated about anything, we will be here to do that.
Cool. Great. The best. The end.
Ta-da!
Bye now.